Hey everybody, this is Candace Yvette with Black Women Aware. First, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who comes by and supports my page. It really does mean a lot to me. If you all can please press the like or dislike button and subscribe, comment, or even email me if you have any suggestions, questions, or concerns. My email is always going to be in the description box. Again, thank you for visiting my channel. Hey guys, it's Candace Yvette with Black Women Aware. So I had to jump in real quick and give this message. First, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for visiting my page. Thank you for showing support and being concerned about the injustices that Black women and children face every day in the United States. I really do appreciate your support. You don't know how much that means to me, especially because I myself am a Black woman. I'd also like to put this quick disclaimer out there. Do not come to my page victim shaming or blaming. You will be immediately blocked for that. I do not tolerate it. There is no need for it. And I'm pretty sure you knew what you were saying in the comment before you posted it. So be respectful. Many of the victims, their families come back and they visit this page. I am their advocate. This is their safe space. No disrespect will be tolerated. You all have a good day. I'm going to let you go back into the commentary. Every 5.5 hours in the United States of America, a Black woman or child is murdered. Stop killing Black women. Stop killing Black children. Wait, hold up. Now, before we get started in today's topic, I wanted to share one last but important and exciting thing with y'all. So I have been communicating with the ladies over at Black Femicide US, and this year's 2022 Black Women's March is going to be held in August. It's going to be held precisely August 27th, 2022. That's a Saturday, y'all, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're going to be marching around the city. Yes, you heard me correctly. I said we're, because Candace Yvette is going to be in attendance, and I am honored to be there. I feel privileged to be there. There's going to be raffles. There's going to be food. There's going to be guest speakers. So if you can, please come out and join us. If you can't join us physically, support us virtually. Share and like this video. Share it with all your friends, or if you can't share the video, go over to Black Femicide's Instagram or their Facebook page, find this flyer and share it. I'm going to read their statement before I go into today's topic. It's one that, even though they wrote, I agree with it as well. So it says, we're going to be marching for the liberation of Black women and girls. We march to bring awareness to the issues that Black women and girls face uniquely and disproportionately. We march to honor Black women and girls and to discuss our plan of action on our future in this country that directly ties to our liberation. Beautiful statement. So I hope you guys can come out and join us. Again, the date is August 27th of 2022. The place is Washington, D.C. We're going to be meeting at the Washington Monument, okay? Washington Monument. So if you can be there, be there. If you need more information, just email me or send Black Femicide US a DM. All right, now it's time to go into our topic. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Candace Yvette, and I am back with another video. In this video, I will be covering a case out of the Los Angeles, California area. Now, this is the case of Kyira Johnson. If you all have not heard about Kyira Johnson went into a hospital in the LA area to have an emergency C-section. When she went in to have her emergency C-section, she was bleeding internally. She was bleeding internally and she passed away. Okay, now for those of you who don't know, Kyira Johnson is the daughter-in-law of Judge Hatchett. And for those of you who don't know who Judge Hatchett is, I don't know where y'all was in the 99s and 2000s, okay? Because 99s and 2000s, Judge Hatchett was popping. I used to love me some Judge Hatchett. Judge Hatchett was a tough love judge. She dealt with paternity tests. She dealt with teens who had got off into the street life, and she was trying to save them and teach them a better life. She would counsel them off off of like outside of the courtroom and kind of teach them about their choices and try to stir them in the right direction, kind of. She was around before my girl Judge Lynn Toller came around, because I love Judge Lynn Toller too. And the other one, I forgot her name. She was in Tyler Perry's. She's always in Tyler Perry's movies. Another black female judge. She's always in Tyler Perry's movies. Judge Abeline. But anyways, I don't want to get off into my favorite judges. When I seen Judge Hatch's face, I kind of went down memory lane a little bit. But this is Judge Hatch's daughter-in-law. Okay, in this case, like I first heard about this case, y'all, 6 years ago. Okay, so it's 2022 now. 6 years ago, that would have been what, like 2015, and 2015 is about the start of when I was like my burnout with the medical field was budding. Okay, but when I heard about this case is the reason why I stayed in the medical field another 6 years. Okay, from way back in 2015 to where we are now. This was the case that made me stand in the gap. You know what I'm saying? Like some of the spiritual Christian people say, they say, stand in the gap for somebody else. Stand in the gap when you praying for somebody else who can't pray for themselves. You know, so I stood in the gap a little longer for black women and children, and really black people, because I noticed, especially when it comes to black women, I noticed some of the things that were happening to us, not only as patients, but as medical staff. And some of them things I'm going to share with y'all in this video, okay, on what I experienced from a patient's point of view and what I experienced from a staff's point of view. We're going to go over it all in this video. You guys kick your feet up. I want you guys, especially the black female listeners, any questions that you have pertaining to your medical health or needs. I'm not talking about specifically. I'm talking about generally, like your rights as a patient and anything like that. Because I'm not a doctor, guys. I cannot legally, I cannot diagnose you. I can't prescribe anything to you. I cannot treat you. Okay. Your doctor is supposed to do them things. So that's why I said, when it comes to your health, don't send me any emails like that. Basically, the reason why I'm asking you to send me your experience, like any kind of negative experiences you had in the medical field or any questions or concerns, I'm asking you guys to send me that because I have got in contact with a few doctors who are willing to interview with me on this channel, and I'm going to use these emails. I won't show anybody's emails if you don't want them to be shown, but I will mention them, and you will remain anonymous unless you tell me otherwise. Okay, I take confidentiality very seriously. But anyways, I am going to show these messages, anonymous messages, to these doctors to encourage them to come on my channel and speak. Not only to speak, to advocate for black women and children, but to teach and educate older, younger, I don't care which ages, to educate you on what to expect and the care you should receive when you go into the doctor. Do y'all understand? Okay, so let's get up into this. Okay, everybody, let's get into this case. So I'm going to read this article to you guys like I've always done, and we're going to go over it. So it says, I've never seen one done that fast. Husband of woman who bled to death at Cedars-Sinai after doctors performed a C-section in 17 minutes. Wow, I've never seen one done either that fast. But anyways, let's keep going. Filed civil suit. And he basically filed a civil rights suit against the hospital. Okay, so this California woman, she passed on 6 years ago after giving birth to her baby boy in one of the top hospitals in the nation. Her family says a botched cesarean section led to their loved one slowly bleeding to death. Okay, before passing on the operating table 12 hours after the delivery. Wow. So she barely got to even spend any time with that baby. Wow. She's still in recovery and everything. Just sad. This is Judge Hatch's daughter-in-law, if I haven't said that already. So Kyira Johnson's husband, Charles Johnson IV, is reaching the culmination of his years-long pursuit of wrongful death lawsuit against Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. Okay. Last week, he and his attorneys announced the filing of a separate civil rights lawsuit against Cedars-Sinai, one that claims the hospital has a culture of systemic bias against black patients that contributed to the 39-year-old dying after what was supposed to be a routine C-section in 2016. So I'm thinking this woman possibly had her other two children, or had her first child rather, by cesarean, and she probably knew going in that she couldn't have a VBAC. A VBAC is basically for women, it's basically a woman who basically has had one of her children or all of her previous children by by C-section. And she feels like she is healed enough to go in and have the next child vaginally. When I was pregnant with my daughter, which is my youngest child, I pushed to have a VBAC, and they fought me up until the last month, and I ended up having her scheduled. She was a C-section baby because they said I was too much of a risk to have a VBAC. VBAC surgeries are often done with women who they will consider them if the woman has some time in between both of her births. Like, my kids are almost 10 years apart, so I was only fighting them on that. The fact that, my kids are 10 years apart. My first child, which was my son, he was my emergency C-section. And that was 10 years ago. And when I went to have my daughter, I really wanted to experience like having her naturally. And they just told me that I was not a good candidate and they will be scheduling her cesarean. But anyways, let's go on. So the lawsuit documents obtained by Atlanta Black Star state the woman was dependent on the defendants for the life-saving medical treatment she needed, and further alleged there is a culture of racism at the institution that can be proven by testimony and statistics. Okay. The claim also alleges Johnson was denied full and equal accommodations, advantages, facilities, privileges, and services because of her race or color as a black woman. On Wednesday, May 4th, Charles Johnson, who is the son of TV Judge Glenda Hatchett, or Judge Hatchett, and attorney Nicholas Rowley, held a news conference on a sidewalk in front of Cedars-Sinai and spoke about Kyira Johnson and how they say her death could have been prevented if staff at the hospital had acknowledged her humanity. Okay, so I believe, and this is just me personally, I do understand racism exists, and I know from experience, both as a medical professional and as a patient, that we as people of color and black people, we do experience it in the medical field. Okay, and later on you'll hear me giving my experiences, my own personal experience from both medical staff and as a patient. You will hear me give my experiences, but I feel like because he's saying like they discriminated against her race, I just pray that he has solid evidence of that, because had he said this happened because of medical neglect or malpractice, he would have like a higher chance of like winning this case if he had said, hey, this was medical malpractice or neglect. The pro in what that he's going after this because of discrimination is, in the long run, it is going to pull off the lid. It's going to basically pull the rug back on and expose all of the things that black and brown people face when we go to see the doctor. Okay, it's going to pull the lid off of that. It's going to further expose it. Like, people talk about it, but they don't really talk about it. They don't get deep into it. Okay, and so that's why I'm glad he is going after it as a discriminatory case. But if he was just winning the case, I believe personally he would have a better chance of winning it if he had said medical malpractice or negligence. But anyways, let's move on. So it says on April 12th of 2016, then pregnant Johnson was scheduled for a C-section to give birth to her son Langston. This would have been her second cesarean birth. She had one with her first son, Charles V, and her family, including her husband, wished her well as medics whisked her into an operating room. Video captured her last kiss with her son before the doctors started the procedure. Now, I'm wondering if anybody went back there with her, because sometimes in cesareans, they'll let loved ones come back with you. Both of my cesareans, I had loved ones there with me, not only in the hospital, but actually in the operating room. With my daughter, like, even though her father did show up at the hospital and all, and to see her birth, my daughter's friend, because my child's father, he got there too late. I don't know if he worked over or what the situation was with him, but he basically got there too late, and so they would not allow him to gown up and come in. But my friend wanted to come in, and she was a medical geek at the time as well. She was just a student at the time, and she wanted to actually see the cesarean, and so I allowed her to come back. But let me go on. So it says the legal complaint describes the C-section as rushed and done sloppily. The surgery was done recklessly, the claim states. The time to start to finish was a mere 17 minutes. Now, my surgery with my daughter, who was scheduled, hers was done. I went back around 9 a.m. Like, they had the epidural and everything in, and I was literally in the operating room at 9 a.m. Around 9:39, my daughter was born. So I was literally, so that doesn't mean that everything was complete, because they still had to put me back together again like Humpty Dumpty. They had to sew everything up and put everything back in its rightful place. But they had her out in 40 minutes. Okay. So, because these surgeries, they don't really take doctors long time to like get to the baby and actually pull the baby out. So I just want to give y'all an idea of, most of these surgeries, they're in and out. But when it comes to women and babies, gynecology and obstetrics, and y'all gotta excuse me because I can never say obstetrics. I can never say that word properly. But when it comes to those two specialties, they are very, very complex. Okay. And every childbirth and every pregnancy is very, very different. Okay. But for them to have this all done in 17 minutes, that is kind of questionable. Okay, because when you go in to have a surgery and all, they have to count the instruments that they use. They have to name off the people in the room. This is all for legal reasons, and I'm just wondering how they were able to do it in 17 minutes, basically. So, anyways, let's go on. So it says the mother's bladder had been lacerated during the C-section. She began complaining of pain and growing progressively weaker. So that is not, I don't want to say it's common, but it's not unheard of. I did have a patient. She wasn't my patient, but I've heard of a patient who I had been floated to mom baby one day. And this patient had a C-section and all. And I don't know who did her C-section, but whoever did it cut the cord, cord between the kidney and the bladder. Now that cord is called, or that tube rather, is called your ureter. It carries urine from your kidney to your bladder. It's not the urethra. The urethra carries the urine from the bladder and outside the body. The ureter takes it from the kidney to the bladder. And this young lady ended up, because during her C-section and all, he cut the ureter and she basically peed out into her abdominal cavity, and it infected everything, and she passed away. And they put her on a basically organ donation list. And they allowed the family told them they could take everything except her heart. It was very sad. And I really wanted that family to basically go after, whoever did that, because mothers, when we go in there to have C-sections, we're expecting to come out alive and well, no matter who you are, you're expecting to come out alive and well. But anyway, so that right there, him saying that her bladder had been lacerated, I definitely wholeheartedly believe. And I'm pretty sure by this time, because it is 6 years later, and because he is suing or going after this hospital. I'm pretty sure they did an autopsy on her and probably confirmed that her bladder was lacerated. Let's go on. So it says Johnson described to CNN in February of 2020 how his fears about his wife's deteriorating condition were handled by Cedars-Sinai staff that day. I can see the Foley catheter, which again, a Foley catheter is inserted into the urethra, and it basically drains pee. And he said he's seen it turn pink with blood. So obviously that's not good when you have blood in your urine. That blood should not be in your urine. Okay. So he says, I just held her by her hand and said, please look, my wife isn't doing well. The woman looked me directly in the eye and said, sir, your wife is not a priority right now. It isn't until 12:30 a.m. the next morning that they finally took the decision to take Kyira back to surgery. He added, okay, now I definitely believe what he was saying, and when y'all hear my testimony, you will understand why I believe what he's saying here. And I often hear black women saying that they don't take our health care seriously because they feel like we can endure more pain. That must have been back in the early part, like when the medical field was getting to be discovered and new, and they were studying a lot of things and experimenting on black women. That must have been for back then, because now I'm not going to say that doctors and medical staff don't believe that or whatever. I've never heard anybody say that personally, but I just believe, I don't believe that they think we can endure more pain today. What I think it is just plain out neglect. Like they don't care, or they think they know more, or they think you don't know what the hell you're talking about. That's what I think it is. Okay, let's keep going. So it says, when she at last was taken to the emergency surgery, doctors found more than 3 liters of blood, that's a lot of blood, pulled into her abdomen. Johnson says the average adult body takes less than 5 liters of blood. It has less than 5 liters of blood. Kyira Johnson died on the operating table. Wow. 6 years later, Charles Johnson says he believes racism played a part in her death. He held a news conference about his case with one of his attorneys, Nicholas Rowley, of Trial Lawyers for Justice and other community advocates in front of Cedars-Sinai on May 4th. The widower told reporters gathered to hear him outside of the hospital, I trusted this place with the thing in my life that was most precious. And God bless this husband, because you don't hear a lot of good black male husbands like that. I'm just gonna keep it 100 with y'all. You don't hear a lot of them like this, and this guy was just amazing, and my heart goes out to not only him but Judge Hatchett, because I do remember years ago Judge Hatchett speaking out about this case as well, and Judge Hatchett's testimony and everything is what really encouraged me, even through my burnout, to stay in the medical field and be a solid advocate for black women. Okay, so let me keep going. Because of the things we have learned through this incredibly painful process, he said, there's no doubt in my mind that my wife will be here today and be here Sunday celebrating Mother's Day with her boys if she was a Caucasian woman. This reality, or the reality, is that on April 12th of 2016, when we walked into Cedars-Sinai's hospital for what we expected to be the happiest day of our lives, the greatest risk factor that Kyira Dixon Johnson faced was racism, he continued. And that must be like very hard to deal with. I cannot tell y'all how traumatic it is to where you're you expected something good to happen, and you planned a certain day. I've literally had that happen, y'all, where I've had these days, and on this day was supposed to be like a good day, a happy day, and it all fell to shit. That is not a good feeling, and that's what leads to post-traumatic stress disorder. So I can only imagine their grief upon learning that she had passed away and all. So let's keep going. The attorney Rowley, standing next to Johnson outside of Cedars-Sinai last week, described the C-section as botched. This is sloppy, Rowley said. It was butchery. It shocked everybody that we disposed. All the healthcare providers, even the head of obstetrics, and I told you I cannot pronounce that word, so I'm going to at least try. Obstetrics. Okay, I hopefully that was a little better. The head of labor and delivery looked at it and said, no, I've never seen one done that fast. And again, I told y'all, my daughter, and this is my own personal experience, took them 40 minutes, like from start to finish, to where they pulled her from where they like had me in there and they laid me down and they pulled her out. It took them 40 minutes. This lady, it took them 17 minutes. Okay, so after that 40 minutes, I was still open on the table. They still had to stitch me back up and all, so the surgery still was not fully completed. They did this lady's whole surgery in 17 minutes, y'all, so think about that. So Riley contends, supported by the testimony of essential workers employed by the hospital, there is a systemic issue of racism that does not give priority to Black people. The court filings alleges there is a disparity in the care of women of color, received insiders compared to women of no color. Angelique Washington, who works for the I'm sorry, y'all, I can't read today for some reason. Angelique Washington, who works as a surgical technologist at Cedars-Sinai, says she leans on her faith when it comes to the care of Black people at the institution. She said on a video that she prays for Black people. I definitely pray for all of my Black patients. Okay, I definitely pray for them, especially when they're in my office and they're not my patients. Or sometimes like in the urgent care is different, because urgent care, we are not really assigned patients. You kind of come in there and whoever helps you. I've been known to like come in and like if a Black woman, y'all, came in when I was working at the urgent care and she had a complaint, I would literally walk out into the waiting area. I would sit down with her and I'm finna look her eye to eye and understand what her complaint is. And I would do that for anybody, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to our people, I notice how the cries for help kind of fall on deaf ears, or nobody believes us. I literally had a situation. So Judge Hatch's testimony at that time helped me work through the burnout, but also this situation. I had a situation where a woman, she was scheduled to have some of her toes amputated. She had type 2 diabetes and it had kind of got out of control and she had to have some of her toes amputated. And I was walking through this unit and I was only over there to get a vitals machine. I was over there doing, people hate when you steal their vitals machine, but I was the vitals machine thief, y'all. I would take your vitals machine and go on to another unit. But anyways, I was over there to get a vitals machine. And this doctor, this man of no color, pulled me out of the hallway and into a patient's room. Now, my rule of thumb is to never enter a patient's room unless I get full rapport. And I don't care who you are, what your job label is. I don't enter that room unless I get full rapport. Part of it is because it could be an isolation room. I don't know what they have. It can hurt me. And then two, you don't know how you can harm that patient doing something for them and it's not your patient. Some patients are on fluid restrictions and they cannot have water. And if you don't know that situation and this patient is begging for water and you're just like the normal staff and you're like, oh, let me get this patient some water, not knowing they're NPO or they can have nothing by mouth, you just completely fucked up everything for that patient, basically. So anyways, this doctor pulls me into the room and he says, can you translate for me? I am trying to basically tell her what's the next plan of action in her health and all. So I'm thinking, when he says translate, I'm thinking, my mind automatically went to the Hispanic or the Mexican population, and I'm like, well, I'm not of Mexican descent, because that's commonly what you see. If they don't speak English, it's usually Spanish that people have to translate for. Like, yeah, you see other people from other backgrounds, but it's rare. The majority of the time when somebody needs a translator, it's either somebody who's deaf and they need like sign language, which I can do, or they speak Spanish. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, upon looking at me, anybody can clearly tell I'm a Black woman, and not saying Black women cannot speak Spanish, but I know it, but I don't know it, right? So I'm thinking, what the hell? Like, why did he just get a blue phone? Blue phones are basically devices in some hospitals that help you to get a hold of a translator. Now, translators, they have people that they hire to legally translate what the patient is saying. If you cannot legally translate, you should not be translating for patients, because people often believe that you can either put words in the patient's mouth or you could put words in the doctor's mouth. So in this case, I was definitely questioning this physician as to why he had pulled me up and was like, hey, can you translate for this patient? Because I'm like, I am not a translator. I legally, even if I knew Spanish, I cannot translate, right? You have to be certified. So anyways, so he pulls me into this room, and upon entering this room, and no disrespect to this patient, but I see this lady, and she's a black woman. She's a bigger woman, but I can readily tell by looking at her that she is an American black woman. I don't know about other people, but I can readily tell looking at some black people, not all, whether they are American black or if they're foreign. Okay. So I'm looking at her and I'm like, why? I'm still confused on why he needs a translator. So the only other thing I can think of is, oh, she may be deaf. Okay. And maybe he knows, somebody probably told him, down to the grapevine that I know sign language. That's far and few in between, because many doctors can be in and out of a hospital. And what's the chances of him knowing about me and I'm afloat? I'm not even on the same floor every day. So I'm confused, y'all, is basically what I'm trying to break down to y'all. So I tell him to walk out so I can get one-on-one with her so she can feel more comfortable talking to me. I pull up a chair and I sit next to her bedside, and me and her begin to talk, and the doctor is standing outside the door. So as I begin to talk to her, and I'm like, do you understand, Miss Such and Such, that the doctor would like to amputate some of your toes because they are no longer there? It's just dead tissue and all we're going through. And she answered me, and y'all, when she answered me, not only did she speak English, but she could readily understand everything what the fuck I was saying. So I automatically knew this man of color, this physician, he felt like he could not communicate with her because of her race, because they feel like black people are, stupid or cannot understand like normal talk. They feel like we only talk in slang or whatever, or ebonics, and they feel like we cannot understand big words or what they're saying. And so immediately upon talking to this lady, I got in her chart. I looked up like whether she could eat or not, got her something to drink. And when I stepped out of that room, internally, I was on fire. I was livid, y'all. I was so pissed off because it was one of my first experiences from the experience of a medical staff that I had that, hey, there's still clear things between people of no color and black people, that it's still like a shade, a gray area between both cultures, and we simply do not understand each other as well as we think we do. Okay, so I can definitely believe this other staff who said that she prays for the patients when they come in, and I definitely agree with her, because you can be speaking perfect English like this patient that I just was telling y'all about, and there's still a gray area to where I don't know how or why, but they feel like they can't understand what you're talking about. Let's go on. So it says, court papers quoted Dr. Kimberly Gregory, the obstetrician and gynecologist at the hospital, saying structural racism exists and it stops black patients from receiving the equitable care as their white counterparts. Gregory also said Johnson should have been brought back to surgery far sooner than she was. Dr. Sarah Kilpatrick, chair of the obstetrics and gynecology department, she said to Johnson, "I'm sorry we have failed your family. This shouldn't have happened." Johnson's attorneys say there was sufficient evidence to prove the hospital engaged in bigoted practices, using race as a subconscious or conscious barometer for care. But Berita Clark, a professor at Loyola Law School, told the Associated Press last week that proving a civil rights case against the hospital will be hard. Didn't I just say that? I said proving the case. I just said that earlier, y'all. I said that had this family went up against the hospital for medical malpractice or whatever, when it comes to winning the case, they would have won clean smooth. They would have had a higher chance of winning had it been medical malpractice or medical negligence. Would have won it out clean smooth. But because he's basing it on race, that's going to be very hard to prove. Okay, it's going to be very hard. But the benefit in it is not going to be, for lack of better terms, I'm going to use a medical term. The benefit in this type of case isn't going to be acute. Acute is a word that basically means something happening right now. The benefit in this type of case is going to be long term. It's going to basically be a long term benefit, and that long term benefit is, like I said earlier, is going to pull back the lid on what is really going on with people of color and black people when we enter the medical facility for care. Okay, this is why I feel like not only should I make black women and children and even black men, as much as I, because some of them, when they come over here, they're so disrespectful. I should not only make black people aware of the care that you receive when you go into the medical facilities, but of your rights and how the body works, and I'm going to, hopefully get a hold of some medical professionals and have them on here. Feel like everybody should have a working knowledge of how your body works, what should be happening, what should not be happening, all of that in between. Okay. So let's go on. The legal team will have to prove discrimination against Kyira Johnson was intentional. The burden of proof is on the plaintiff. You have to prove this, okay? And even though he's saying, because all throughout this article, you have her husband, Mr. Johnson, saying this is what other people have said to him. They said to him that they have wronged Miss Johnson in this case, but that is hearsay. Unless he has it recorded or something, they're going to throw that shit out. I'm telling y'all how this shit works. Let's keep going. Compared to when civil rights laws were enacted, a lot of the kind of unequal treatments that we see in healthcare today does not seem to be explicit. It's very microaggressive like, and that's very true. It does not seem to be conscious. Very true. Cedars-Sinai released a statement vehemently denying racist practices. Of course, because if he cannot put it in stone, if it's not in stone and writing and it's blatant, like when people say the N-word, they can damn near walk away from this, y'all. That's why I said he'd be better if he doubled down with medical negligence or medical malpractices. He could snatch a couple licenses. Anyways, let's keep going. Cedars-Sinai was founded on the principles of diversity, inclusion, and quality healthcare for all. We reject any mischaracterization of our culture and values. This is basically like a PR statement. While disparities exist throughout our society, and when they say society, they mean America. They're not talking about them specifically. We are actively working to eradicate unconscious bias in healthcare and advance I can't talk, y'all. Okay, so it says we are actively working to eradicate unconscious bias in healthcare and advance equity in healthcare more broadly. We commend Mr. Johnson for the attention he has brought to an important issue of racial disparities in maternal outcomes. So basically, they basically saying, like they giving this is a PR statement, y'all. They talking about their values. Let me tell y'all something. As somebody who's worked in many different facilities, a lot of people don't follow them damn values. Let me just be honest with y'all. Some people do. Some medical workers do, and they uphold them and they, follow them like to the T. You know what I'm saying? Some of us who have been in the field long enough, we have our general own values that we follow when we're on the floors. We know to respect others. We know to do our job properly. We know how to work in integrity. We know how to respect confidentiality of our patients. Some of us stick to those, because I'm telling you what I know. If you go up into any medical facility and you quiz the worker and you ask them, what's our values? What's the company's values? I'm going to tell y'all, they not going to, it's going to be somebody who knows, but it's also going to be, I'm telling you, most of the time, it's going to be a worker who going to have to look up the policy book. Just being honest. So let me keep going. So it says the wrongful death case against Cedars-Sinai is set to go on trial May 11th. So it's coming up. It's tomorrow, actually, in LA Superior Court. Okay, and my prayers and well wishes are with Judge Hatchett and her son as they pursue that case. Yeah, y'all, but I had to go over this case because this is what kept me grounded, even though I was burnt out. Okay, this is what kept me grounded. Even on days where I was crying and I didn't really want to go to work because I had just lost my flair. The thrill was gone. And I knew I wanted to do something else other than the medical field. But when I would see black women, you know, especially black women and children, when I would come across them, no matter what facility I was in, that kind of was like my reminder to stay grounded, to stay in the gap. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to give you all my personal experience, not only as a patient or what I experienced as far as discrimination and neglect, but as a medical staff. Okay, and these experiences, I'm not really going to go too deep because I want to save the real in detail stuff for when and if I can get a physician on this page to discuss how I can make y'all more aware. So at this time, I'm going to share with you all my own personal experiences. Okay, y'all, so now it's on to my part where I give my own personal experiences and my own testimony as to what I experiences, not only as a medical staff worker, but as a patient and a black woman in the medical field. And before I even go into all of that, I'm going to first give this disclaimer. I am a millennial baby. So one thing that they noticed in 2020, when there was like nobody supposedly working or going out and getting jobs or whatever, and they noticed a lot of millennials, when we don't like something or we feel like you're mistreating us, we get that resume, we ship it out, and we sell out. You know, we don't sit around and let somebody mistreat us and try to still stay on the job. No, we don't like something, we get on up out of there. And I've been on that since before 2020. If I didn't like something, I knew fair and well there was a great market out there. There was a lot of different jobs out there. There was a lot of different fields out there. And one of my first jobs in the medical field, matter of fact, the only thing I really ever did in the medical field was float. Okay, every job that I've had in the medical field, I literally float. So I'm used to changing up. I'm very versatile. That was one thing that employers really liked about me, because when they noticed, no matter where they put me, I really pretty much for the most part, I never complained. And that was pretty much because of my whole experience in the medical field over 16 years. I've done nothing but float. And when you float, you notice good things about different units and you notice bad things about other units, but you learn to adjust. And you adjust because as a float, you know, hell, I won't be here long if I don't like the floor. And if I do like the floor, cool, you know, it'll be an easy breezy day. And I'm just keeping it real with y'all. That is the life of a float. Plus you get paid more to float. Okay, but anywho, I remember I was applying for this job, and I was up in there. I had my resume ready. I was looking very professional, and this is just a short story, right? But I was looking real professional. I had went up to tell the receptionist that I was there, to let the interviewer know that I was there, and out, you know, waiting for my interview. Left my cell phone in the car in case it ring. Nowadays, if you leave your cell phone in the car during the interview, they pretty much don't like that because they want you to like give them emails. I've literally had people tell me, or interviewers tell me, don't leave the car in the phone. I was always professionally trained to leave the car in the phone. That way, if it rings or if it goes off, you're not distracted, right? But I had left the phone in the car, y'all. Had my little resume, was looking nice and professional. Hair was laid, everything, right? Receptionist, I could already tell when I approached her that, like, just by the way that she was acting, like she was acting uncomfortable and everything when she was talking to me, I could already tell what kind of office this was. But since I had already scheduled the interview, I figured, let me go on with the interview and I'll probably end up looking somewhere else. Okay. But this woman of no color comes in, and when she comes in and she sees that I'm also interviewing for the same role that she interviewing for, like, y'all, she wasn't dressed as professional as I was. She was in her scrubs. Now, I will say this: when you're in the medical field, some places will allow you to interview in your scrubs, okay? But this lady, her scrubs were wrinkled, her hair didn't look like it had been combed. But when she seen me, a black woman who she was interviewing, like basically competing with for the job, she smirked. And she smirked because she knew off the bat, like, she would already get that job over me, right? So I interviewed, because I'm a person of my word. I'm going to keep my word. Most of the time I try my best to keep my word. So interview for the job or whatever. Now, I knew already in my head that I didn't like the way that the office, like the people were acting. And I knew good and damn well I wasn't going to be able to deal with that 5 days out of my week. Just wasn't. But from that moment, like, just, that lady looking at me and smirking and knowing that she wasn't even dressed half as decent as I was, and knowing by looking at me like her little once over that she already had the job over me, that's just one experience that I had as a medical staff worker of discrimination in the medical field. Let me go on. Okay, so this next story, a lot of people of color, I'm gonna tell y'all now, y'all not gonna like it, but it's true blue. And if it's any people who work in the medical field, this is true. I've literally been fired out of patients' rooms. And when you're fired out of patients' rooms, for those of you who do not work in the medical field, that does not mean you're fired off the job. When you're fired out of a room, you and that patient, or the patient, or you yourself, somebody in that relationship has decided, I'm not going to mesh well with this person. I don't feel comfortable with this person, and I don't want this person over my care, right? So I've literally been fired out of patient rooms, not by people of no color, but by black people. Yep, you heard me right. Myself and other medical staff, whether it's the CNA, whether it's the phlebotomist, we have literally been fired by our own people. And they literally will tell you, oh, we want a person of no color to take care of our health or whatever. We don't want our own people. We don't want black people, because they feel like black people will be rude to them, will be lazy, we won't do our jobs, all these stereotypical bullshit, and then literally, this is a true story, y'all. I wish y'all could see me right now, because I literally got my right hand to God. Literally got my right hand to God. But we had this patient do this, right? And the lady that she turned down wasn't American black. She was African. Okay. Real cool African nurse. Now I understand, and I am very aware of that American black people and African people, all the time, we're not seeing eye to eye. Okay. I get it. But this African nurse, y'all, she was cool. Ooh, I really did get along well with this lady. And she was fired from the room. When I say she was a thorough nurse, she was a very thorough nurse. She was up on her shit. She didn't even take breaks, y'all. The woman would sit at the nurse's station and eat, and I always thought that was nasty, because we're coming out of rooms and yeah, we're washing our hands and everything, but to sit at the nurse's station and eat, like, I kind of got OCD too, y'all. So you can't mind me, but some of these rooms are like isolation rooms. Isolation rooms basically means this patient has something contagious, and you coming out that patient room and you don't know if this thing is on your clothes and all, and so I never really liked that about her. But when I say she was on her shit and she was very thorough and she was a very intelligent nurse, can't nobody take that from her, not even God. And I respected her for that, because she did her job with like the utmost integrity. All right. But this lady was fired from the room. And when she came and told me, she said, Candace, we're not allowed in that room. And I said, that's a person of color in that room. That's a black woman in that room. She said, no, she don't want you up in there. She don't even want a black woman housekeeper in that room. She don't care what your title is. You could be the doctor. She don't want you if you're a person of color. And I asked her why. And she basically was telling me, like, the lady, had this problem and she wanted all white staff, right? So The hospital I was working at, let me tell y'all this, some floors allow patients to get away with that, but some floors didn't, okay? So this floor, they basically wasn't putting up no fights, and they allowed this lady to get away with that. Now, the new nurse that came in and took over, and let me put this quick disclaimer out there. I done met some cool ass white nurses, okay? I done met some cool ass doctors who was people of no color, nurses who was people of no color, and some of them will go to infinity for you and beyond. And I'm saying this because this is not a case of me wanting to pick somebody else up and put somebody down. This is a real experience. But this nurse here, she had rumors, like a bad reputation with this hospital. Like she was not always up to par. She was kind of lazy. The CNAs who she worked with, they knew, like, oh my God, please don't put us with, and I'm just gonna make up a name. I'm just gonna say Becky, because that's a common name that people like to use. But they would say, Becky, don't put us with Becky and all, because if you put us with Becky, Becky's not gonna help. She's not gonna round her patients like she should. She's just gonna sit at that computer at the nursing station. She's really not gonna help much, right? So this patient who had denied all of her, people of color or black people staff, she had got Becky. Let's just call that nurse Becky, right? And Becky, y'all, when I tell y'all, this lady, she didn't have such a good evening after that. And she tried again. She tried to get the supervisor of the floor in there to switch the nurse again. But by that time, supervisors of the floor, they don't only oversee and make sure patient care is okay. They oversee all of the staff. They have meetings with the doctors. They have meetings with the other managers of the other floors. They don't have time for all of this little, if ain't nothing really seriously going on with you, if nobody's violating your rights, you're going to see the impatience come out of a unit supervisor when they have to keep switching your medical staff. Just gonna keep it real with y'all. So anyways, this unit supervisor was like, no, I don't care what this patient is talking about. If Becky is not violating her rights or not neglecting or abusing her, she's gonna keep Becky, right? So I felt like, in a way, that was a little bit of karma, like, hey, you got what you asked for, you reap what you sow. But I have had that happen in the medical field. I have been also turned down by people of no color, myself and other medical staff in hospital settings as well, okay? But they didn't really come out and say the N-word. Like, I really never had a patient come out and call me an N-word unless they had like mental disorders or they were under the influence of street drugs. Some of them patients, they'll come back to you and be like, I'm sorry, I was out of it or whatever. Or some of them, they won't apologize. I'm just gonna keep it real with y'all. But this one lady we had, she fired us from the room as well because we were black women, myself and another nurse, because this lady, and I'm not saying this to shame her, I'm just saying this because it is a true experience. But she was, a bariatric patient, and a bariatric patient is people who are like 400, 500, 600 pounds. And so whenever we would go in to care for her, we would always have to take another person with us, because this hospital that I worked at highly encouraged us to do whatever we could to prevent back injuries, because they did not like paying for back injuries. Okay, so if in case we got a patient and you could tell that this patient was so heavy or they had an injury to where you needed a second staff there, we would actually get in trouble if the hospital seen us, like if any of the higher ups seen us caring for a patient and trying to be superwoman and taking care of a patient that really required 2 or 3 staff. Okay. So anyways, me and this other lady, other black woman, go into this room to give this patient a bed bath. And the whole time she's complaining, y'all, we did everything for her. We even massaged her feet or whatever, did anything and everything to make her comfortable. She still called the supervisor on us, and we overheard the supervisor, and I still have the highest respect for this supervisor to this day. This is a supervisor who pulled me into office and said, Candace, you need to be wearing blue. I don't know where y'all are in the world, but blue or royal blue in the Midwest, that signifies that you're an RN. So this lady would see me and she would see how I would round handle my patients, and she encouraged me to take my education to the next level. And this was a woman of no color who did that. But anyways, so this supervisor goes into the room, and because the lady basically told the supervisor, we overheard her telling the supervisor, I don't want other cultures in this room. And the supervisor just went off, and she was like, I don't care what you have against people's other cultures, but if I assign them to this room and they're not violating your rights, they're going to be up in this room. You know, if it's not something where they're abusing or neglecting you, they're going to be up in this room. Okay. So like I said, this certain supervisor, unlike the other certain unit supervisor, she wasn't having that. If you didn't like somebody because like for example, their sexual orientation, or because of their gender or their race or disability, she wasn't having that. You couldn't just cancel your staff like that. So those are some of the stories and some of the experiences of discrimination that I have experienced from a medical staff's point of view. So now I'm going to tell you about the experience I've had as a patient. Hey, what's up, y'all? So this part of the video is going to be about my experiences as a patient dealing with discrimination in the medical industry. So I'm going to tell y'all about how I self-diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, right? So back in 2018, for those of y'all who don't know, 2020, I had bariatric surgery or whatever. And during my stint in recovery and resting at home after my surgery is when I birthed Black Women Aware. Okay. So anyways, in 2018, I had woke up one day, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was having heart palpitations. Now, upon me also having these heart palpitations, I was also having neuropathy in my feet. I would come home from work, working 12 and 14 hour shifts, and I would notice that my feet were hurting more than they should have been, but in odd places. I have literally been working 12 and 16 hour shifts most of my career in the medical field. So for my feet to be hurting like that, that was odd to me, and I knew something wasn't right. Also, I was having headaches and I was seeing stars. Okay. So I knew that I was type 2 diabetic. I literally self-diagnosed. Okay. So the day that I went in to see the doctor, I walked down to the doctor. I had a car and everything, but I walked because I was trying to kill some of the carbs and get the sugar to go down so that I wouldn't have the headaches, right? But anyways, I walked to the doctor and get in the doctor. I'm telling basically the nurse, you know, she's doing my vitals and she's getting my medical history, my past medical history and all. And I'm telling her like, hey, you know, because this lady I know her from the other hospital. Now, the city and state where I'm from, we only have 2 major hospitals, right? And they compete with each other. Now, in our city, it's not uncommon to have a nurse working full time at one hospital and part time at the other, or a doctor going back in between the hospitals. That is not uncommon in the city I'm from. So this nurse, I knew her from the other hospital. You know, I knew her. We had worked at the other hospital together, and so. I'm telling her, I'm like, hey, Jane Doe, I was at home. I self-diagnosed. I'm type 2 diabetic. I would like to talk to the doctor because I am not getting on any meds. I'm not doing any of that. I'm going straight to bariatric surgery. And so anybody who knows anything about the medical field, you know, when it comes to surgeries, doctors will not just say, hey, yeah, let me see if you have this disease and boom, we gonna hurry up and get you a surgery. No, they go through everything else first. They go through pills. They try to, you know, get you to, you know, change your lifestyle on your own. But me, I know me. And I knew that without surgery and without me actually getting the training to relearn how to eat, to relearn how to care for myself. And one thing about bariatric offices, most insurance companies require you to have like a 6-month stint to where you're not doing anything but vlogging, like you're keeping a log of all of the times you eat, drink water, exercise, and all. And you have to do that to get the surgery. So I don't know if y'all ever seen Dr. Now, but what Dr. Now is doing in My 600 Pound Life, a lot of bariatric offices do, because of insurance reasons. They have to do that. They have to show the insurance provider that, hey, this person is trying, they're doing everything they can to lose weight on their own, but at the time that we scheduled the surgery, they needed a little extra help. So this is why we need to do the surgery, right? So I knew as a medical person, I needed somebody, I needed an advocate, I needed somebody on my ass to help me keep on the right track and relearn how to eat and eventually get a surgery, right? So the doctor comes in and he is very arrogant, and he is like, you know, he's talking to me like, why the hell do you think you're diabetic? And let me throw this in real quick, y'all. This doctor was a resident. If you don't know what a resident is basically like a student doctor. Like, they're doctors, but they're not doctors. They're student doctors. They basically learn how to treat and deal with real patients before they actually get their license. Okay, but they are managed by real doctors. So if anything, if they can't handle something, it's real doctors in that same office that they can go to if they have questions, if they don't know how to diagnose something, if they're not familiar. So this student doctor, which, you know, let me just say this, I got a lot of respect for doctors, but sometimes when you're a nurse or even a medical assistant, when you come into the medical field, sometimes it is cases where you know more than these doctors. Okay, I've literally worked with doctors who didn't know how to give blood pressures, because doctors don't give blood pressures. Most of the time they had a nurse do it. That's real shit, y'all. Keeping it real with y'all. Okay, so I was very offended to have, at this time I had been in the medical field about 12 years. And so I was offended that when I came into that office, like, I literally know all the nurses who work up in here because I've worked with them. I know, it was just too much. And to have this doctor sit up here and treat me like I didn't know what I was talking about, because for literally, y'all, from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., he was like, why do you think you have diabetes? And I'm like, you're asking me this, but literally at the competing hospital where I work, I would go on units, y'all. I would float to certain units, and it would be surgeons. It would be ICU nurses. It would be family physicians sometimes in that facility, and they would look at me and they would joke around with me. Candace, schedule with us. You know, come over and be our patients, because we gonna be seeing you in a few years for diabetes. Real shit. Real shit used to say that to me. This is without them knowing my personal symptoms, the symptoms that I was having. They would just look, because from the shape of an individual, you can kind of tell, you can gauge where their health is, you know. And as a medical person, you just know, you know, I've even done that when I'm rooming and I'm getting report on certain patients before that staff that is getting off the clock, that staff that I'm relieving, before they can leave, I done already came up with a whole bunch of stuff about this patient just by what they're attached to. Are they on IV fluids? Do they have a Foley catheter? I'm looking at their body. Do they have the big beer belly? If I see that beer belly, I know I'm dealing with a diabetic or a heart patient. They probably in here for something related to that, or it's cancer. You know, I literally run through all this stuff in my brain. So I've done it too. And, you know, usually, you know, I'm right, but I still let the person give me report in case I'm not right. But anywho, to have this doctor sit up and belittle me when other professionals who have been in the game longer than me have confirmed what I had found out for myself, it was crazy, y'all. Set up and argue with this man for 2.5 hours about my own care. And this is somebody who is supposed to be like an advocate, somebody who's supposed to be assisting me in my health care, right? So let me just read to y'all real quick, because I was fighting. This is what I was fighting with him about. Okay, I was fighting with him about getting an A1C test. Now, the test itself is simply a finger prick. Imagine that. Like, I'm not fighting with you to get an x-ray. I'm not fighting with you to, get a rib breaker and crack open my rib and do ribs and do a major heart surgery. I'm not fighting with you to even give me a IM injection. IM injection is basically like a shot in your muscle. I'm not fighting with you for even that. I'm literally fighting with you as a black woman, as a patient, somebody that you are not aware, but I am a medical person, so I know my rights. I'm literally fighting with you to prick my finger and check my A1C. Okay? So I'm gonna get into whatever else I gotta say about that in a minute. Why, and it's all going to go along with why I stayed in the medical field as long as I did. Okay, but let me just read this off word for word so y'all know what an A1C is. A1C is a measure of your hemoglobin proteins in your blood, and it's coated with sugar. So that sugar is what they're measuring, right? So the hemoglobin proteins in the red blood cells transport oxygen. The higher the A1C level, the poorer your blood sugar control. Okay, so for diabetics, for type 2 diabetics, those are the diabetics who are taking in a lot of carbs. They're not really eating their as much as they should be of the other food categories. They're not really watching their carb intake. They live a sedentary lifestyle. Most of them have the beer belly, right? And so I had all of those damn symptoms, y'all. And this man is sitting up here belittling me and telling me why he would not, because like I said, doctors, you can have all the medical experience that you want, but if you don't have that MD or an MP, like a nurse practitioner behind your name, you cannot treat, diagnose, or prescribe. You can know that you know of what you're talking about, but if you don't have those letters behind your name, you cannot order a motherfucking thing. Like, doctors can literally tell the hospital how they want you to eat, shit, pee when you go to the hospital. They tell the nursing staff whether they want you to shit, regularly, or they want you to have a fecal system. They tell the nurses whether they want you to have a catheter or whether not the doctors do that. The nurses just manage it, y'all. So anyways, I'm telling him this, and the only thing that saved me, that broke with him, is that other nurse, that woman of no color, because I'd known this nurse from the other hospital. And I don't know if I've already said it, but the city and town I'm from, is not abnormal for doctors and nurses to work at both hospitals, right? And all. So this nurse who had roomed me, and rooming is just a process where you bring the patient back, you go over their medications and past medical history and all, you take their vitals and you prep them and get them ready to see the physician. So me and her knew each other because we had worked together. And so she had to come back in to get her stethoscope, right? And she's apologizing profusely because if anybody knows, when a doctor's in with the patient, it's very rude in the medical world when you're walking in on that consultation between that patient and doctor. But she's apologizing profusely, and she comes in to get her stethoscope and she overhears the conversation. Now, when she overhears me arguing with this man and telling him, I literally self-diagnosed at home, sir, and I've been in the medical field for X amount of years. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I am diabetic, and if you don't do something about it, I'm going to fucking die. You understand? When she heard that, she didn't only burst in, because like I told you, when you come in on a doctor and a patient, it is considered rude. But she didn't only do that, but she interrupted him when he was talking to me, and she said, you know what? She said, I don't know what you talking about. She said, but this is my friend, Candace. She said, me and Candace have worked together. She said, I think you ought to listen to her. Candace is a medical person herself. I think Candace knows what the fuck she's talking about. Okay? So, on her word, on this woman of no color's word, this doctor said, all right, such and such, or Jane Doe, go on out and prepare a finger prick test, the A1C, and come back and prick her finger. And y'all, by this time, because this certain office closed at 5 p.m., we were in there at still in that office around 6:30 p.m. So he's pissed because he's had to work over. Some doctors will see their patients every 10 to 15 minutes when they're in doctor's offices. They like to get in, they like to get out. or some doctors, depending on which physician you get, they like to look over everything with you in detail, and so you will work over with that doctor. Some doctors don't like that. They got shit to do outside of home. They finna see you in 10 minutes, and get you out the door. He was one of those quick doctors, right? So he already pissed at me, and he low-key threatened me, like, if you really ain't got diabetes, and I don't remember what he said because this was 4 years ago, but if he was like, if this A1C test don't come back as such and such, because let me remind you, black women, they think you don't know your rights. Okay? And I always used to use that against them to write people up because you don't think that I know what the fuck I know. So I let him talk his shit. All right? And I done told this man, I'm not going on no metformin. I'm not going on any of that shit. I'm going to the bariatric clinic and I'm going to have weight loss surgery. I'm not doing none of that shit. I'm not getting on metformin because I know me and I know my daily routine, and I know Candace is not going to feel cool depending on a med. Them medications, and this is my opinion, y'all. You do what you feel like is best for your health, but this is my opinion. I'm not finna be nobody's guinea pig, and you not finna make money off of my suffering. That was my thinking at the time. So fuck them pills. I'm going straight into the surgery. I'm going to have this surgery and reverse all of this shit. That was my thinking. You're not going to use me to make money off of me while I'm suffering, if I can help it. And diabetes type 2 is a disease that can be reversed. Okay? So anyways, the nurse Jane Doe, she came back, she pricked my finger, and he sent me home because the office was already closed. But don't y'all know that man called me an hour later and gave me the most sincere fucking apology because I had been right. My A1C was like, I think it was between a 7 and an 8. I don't remember because it was 4 years ago and all. But I was diabetic. And he felt like such a motherfucking fool that he said, Candace, he said, whatever the fuck you want to do from here on out. He said, I was going just put you on metformin or whatever. He said, but whatever the fuck you want to do, we gonna go on and do it. Y'all know why he did that? He did that not to help me. He did that to help him motherfucking self, because he knew now that he had talked to Jane Doe behind the scenes, he knew that Candace was a medical person and Candace knows her motherfucking rights. And so I was going to be on his ass, and before he had his license, I was gonna have it for how he treated me. And I'm sorry that I'm yelling in this video, but my emotions still come out on it because I literally saved my own life. Okay? So when people come to me and they say, Candace, why didn't you put yourself first? And if you knew you had burned out, just left the medical field, because I know somewhere down the line, it is another black woman or child who was going to experience what I experienced and not know what I knew. And they will be fucked around and probably be on their deathbed a lot quicker because somebody will not understand them or will just highly neglect their care because they assuming that you don't know your rights. So yes, I did. Excuse me if I get a little bit emotional on this video, but yes, I did. I stayed in the gap for y'all black women. I stayed in the gap for 4 more years. I went into some offices where I was the only black medical staff. I deal with motherfuckers touching my hair. I deal with microaggressions. I did it all for y'all black women. To make sure that when you're seen by your physician, somebody is there to advocate for you. Ain't nobody just gonna fuck you over when Candace on the clock. You understand? But anyways, so yeah, he was like, Candace, he said you can do whatever you want to do with your health, because he realized that he had been a motherfucking fool. You know what I'm saying? He had misdiagnosed, and I could have had his license, y'all, fast, not slow. I was going to be on his ass. So he said, but I will try to get you. He said, I do want to advise you take metformin while you're waiting for your surgery. He said, but as far as you going over to see the bariatric clinic, the surgeon, he said, once you come back and give me the doctor you want to go see, he said, we can go over there. He said, and you could go see him. He said, and when you go see him or whatever, he said, just give me the name and number of the doctor. He said, and I'll get it over there as soon as possible, right? He said, I'll get it over there as soon as possible. So, y'all, by the time this man called me back with my diagnosis, he didn't have to say nothing but a thing. I had literally already had the damn number and name of the doctor that I wanted to see. So while I had Mr. Smartmouth on the phone with me, I went on ahead and gave him the name and number of where he could send my referral. Okay, gave him everything. And as far as me taking the meds, I ain't gonna lie, I did try the metformin, but metformin, it kept me nauseous. It gave me diarrhea and all. And I didn't like it. So how I managed the diabetes up until I could reverse it and have the surgery, I managed it by going keto. And I bought myself like a stationary exercise bike because I am an introvert, y'all. You know, so even, you know, the gym, it be sounding appealing to me. And now, nowadays, I do have a gym membership because I'm trying to get to be more social because I live in a state and a city and it's not my hometown. But back in the day, you know, I don't like being around people like that. So I had a stationary bike at home so that when I did slip up and make a mistake and eat a carb, I would hurry up. Like, you know, cookies back in the day was my thing, y'all. Chocolate chip cookies fresh out the oven. As y'all can see, I'm a very good baker. I can bake my shit. I don't have to go out and buy a damn thing. As long as I got some key ingredients, I could throw some shit together. So when I would have a cookie or two, I know that before the body begins to, like, before it uses fat or protein as a energy source, it uses carbs. It's gonna burn them carbs first. What's gonna happen when those carbs get burned? My damn body is my sugar is gonna go up. What's gonna happen when my sugar go up? I'm gonna be an asshole, because when your sugar goes up, it doesn't only give you headaches and you have these other diabetic symptoms, but you're an asshole. It fucks with your mood. Okay? So the minute I would have a cookie or two, boom, I'm on that bike. Give me a good 30-minute ride in, and it will be like I never even had the cookies. Okay? Now that came back to bite me in the ass later on, because sometimes nurses and medical people, we can be our worst enemies, you know, sometimes, right? But yeah, y'all. So I had the surgery. I had to wait 2 years to have my surgery or whatever. Had the surgery. It was successful. If y'all want me to go on about the bariatric surgery and what that all entails, I don't mind doing that. Just let me know in the comment below. I will go on about that. But yes, y'all. So that's my personal patient experience. I have a lot more of them, but that one stood out to me the most because it was dealing with a serious matter. Even though type 2 diabetes is easily reversible, if you do not treat type 2 diabetes, it will fuck around and fuck with other shit. It will fuck with your eyesight, your heart, your kidneys, and like it even can because sugar, when it passes through your bloodstream, sugar is so big that it can't really pass through like other elements in your bloodstream. So when big sugar comes through, it blocks up capillaries, and it can block up capillaries. Capillaries are arteries. They're specialized, they're very tiny arteries, and they're everywhere in your body. And so when it blocks up those capillaries, that blood flow can't come through. And what happens when the blood flow can't come through? Those tissues die. So when you look at a diabetic and you're wondering why, hey, their foot is black, or they have bad vision, or, you know, they've had glaucoma and all, that's because those sugars has blocked up those capillaries and killed off those tissues. Okay. And I wasn't going that route. I wasn't going to allow that to happen to self. And I had to take some accountability and get myself taken care of and all. Right. But y'all, that is my story. Please get in my comment section and tell me what you think about that. You guys, please be safe out here. Be alert, be aware. When it comes to being aware and black women aware, I'm not just talking about black men. We know black men are toxic. We know we got to watch out for black men. I'm talking about the medical field. I'm talking about whatever black women face where we're in danger or we need to be educated on something. Okay, that's why this channel is expanding. I'm gonna always cover the missing and murder cases, but it's expanding a little past that because we need to be aware in other areas so that we can have the best life possible for self. Okay, y'all, for real. This is Candace Yvette. I am now signing off.